Beatsides, your sideshow of the Foxborough Beatcast. No Ryan, but we do have some of my great colleagues here. We do have Tristin, as usual, with the new picture taken at Comerica Park, Comerica Field, whatever the hell it's called. I took that picture, I think.
Is it you or Brian? Yeah.
Yeah, in front of the Miggy chair. We didn't even get to see Miguel Cabrera play that game. But we did get to see his cousin, Zach McKinstry. Yeah. We were the most annoying people in that park chanting his name, thinking that he's related to Tristin.
And ninth inning was the funnest thing I've experienced at a sporting event, and we were down like 14-2. So
to a trash Red Sox team.
Yeah.
And we do have the man who ditched me on the Beatcast this week. Trent is here for the Beatsides. We were able to bully him into this one. Trent, you're becoming somewhat of a regular here on this channel. I'm very happy for that.
I appreciate that, even though it was a little dishonest. What you just said. Just a little bit.
Is that right?
No, I'm happy to be here. You have to bully me at all.
But what I did have to bully you guys into is looking into one of my favorite sports, NASCAR. Obviously, you two know jack about the sport in 2023, so I'll help you tag along. But this isn't really about the sport as much as the NASCAR awards just happened tonight, and that would be something that I could go on for all day for, like how Kyle Busch deserves most popular driver after being the most hated dude for a decade. But neither here nor there. This conversation will be revolving around the NASCAR media rights deal for 2025 on. This is the last year that they have the half and half between Fox and NBC that they've had for the last decade or so. This is a 7-year deal worth about $7 billion, making about $1 billion per year. And it's going to become a little bit complex for your average NASCAR viewer, which I'm sure when you think of NASCAR viewer, you think of the old guys with the gray hair, with the beer bellies, and just they have no clue on how to work a streaming service or anything beyond like their cable box and their direct TV that they've had for 20 years. But this deal does kind of put a hinder on things, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some wrestling drama that has come up since our last episode with the return of CM Punk and some of the backlash or feedback that we've seen this week on how that Monday Night Raw promo has kind of gone over. And then it's obviously college football championship weekend. We'll run through those as well. But first things first, let's talk about the NASCAR media rights deal. So for those of you who don't know, new deal, as every other sport has, they have their collective bargaining agreements. They have their TV rights deals. It's all just kind of a part of the game. The NFL has this every decade, I feel like, when they talk about how they're going to go about streaming services and broadcasting games or whatnot. And NASCAR obviously they've taken the mantle this time around. So I'll break it down very simple for you guys so you don't have to read their whole press release. The first 14 races of the Cup Series, again, will be broadcasted by Fox as usual. They'll have the Daytona 500. They'll have all those big early season races like they always do. Then the next 5 races, this is a new edition, they will be broadcast live on Prime TV. Like tonight, the Dallas Cowboys are taking on the Seattle Seahawks on Prime Video. And that's the only place that you can really find it unless you're a local station. Like you live in Dallas, you live in Seattle, you're going to get that on your local CBS, I think, or your local Fox. I forget who carries that broadcast for them in the local areas. But with NASCAR, it might be a little different because there's no local, like it's not like people who live in Atlanta get those Atlanta races just on their local TV. If they got a race going and it's on Prime Video, the only way that you're going to be able to find it is Prime Video. So they'll have that for 5 races. And then the next 5 races, they will have it on TNT/HBO Max. We've seen that Max has kind of taken a little bit of steps forward into getting their race production. Another race for their sport production. Now with their acquisition of TNT, they get those Stanley Cup playoff hockey games on TNT. They get the NBA games on TNT. That's a big addition for them. And obviously TNT is a bit of a nostalgia factor because back when they were the cable channel that they were back in the early 2000s, NASCAR had a huge market for that back in the Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr. days. And then the final races will be on NBC, including the playoffs, the championship, the whole 9 yards. So the biggest problem I find with this is, again, you're kind of old school, old timey NASCAR fans, which makes up most of that demographic. They don't know how to work these streaming services. I know that a lot of the old timer fans who were already like on the verge of leaving the NFL and NBA and NHL for political reasons, following the tumultuous administration of a certain president, I'm not going to name by name, that they had just kind of opted and left, and the ratings go down. And we've seen cable ratings go down for the last decade or so. But I did hear that Thursday Night Football has had an all-time high in viewership the last couple of years. So Amazon Prime has obviously worked out. Let's see how that translates into NASCAR. Obviously, not as popular of a sport as it was probably 20 years ago. But I don't know. I just feel like they went and got the bag for this deal. $7 billion isn't nothing. We'll see how that kind of impacts the sport, but we'll just kind of open this up to a broader conversation here so I can get some fluids in my mouth here. Tristin, I'll start with you. As far as sports broadcasting and TV, not that NASCAR is doing anything different or spectacular. We've seen this a lot with a lot of sports, but how do you feel like streaming services have translated into sports viewership the last couple of years since streaming has really taken into effect, and what kind of positive negatives do you see?
In terms of positives, I think it's a little bit more accessible because I mean, yes, these streaming services like having to buy like 3 different streaming services adds up, right? But if you were like the NHL or something and you struck a deal with one streaming service to broadcast all of these games or carry all these games,
which they kind of did with ESPN.
Yeah, they kind of do right now with ESPN Plus, since I think ESPN Plus like bought NHL.TV or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the one thing. It's $10.99 a month now, and you get every out of market game. Like that can be pretty good, but then I think it gets into honestly I kind of feel like a lot of sporting entities, leagues, whatever you want to call them, are afraid to really go full force into streaming right now. I think a lot of them are still holding out that cable will rebound, which I just don't really see happening. Like cable is on its way out. Let's just be real here. Right now I don't have cable. I split a YouTube TV account with a friend of mine. So
no, my family has YouTube TV. We cut the cord probably right before COVID. I think 2019 is when we because we had moved from one house to another, and at that point it was just easier to cut the cord and go right to streaming. Trent, I don't know if you have a similar experience with that.
The last place I lived before I moved back to Indiana for a little while, it gave us Spectrum TV. It came baked in with the rent, so we didn't have to. But before that, I mean, it just, for especially people our age with student loans, things like that.
Cable's expensive, man.
Yeah, cable is absolutely expensive, and if you can split YouTube TV 4 different ways, it doesn't make any sense not to.
Yeah, like I actually remember. I remember my dad and I got internet and cable a couple years ago, and I remember telling Kaleb about it because it was like a big thing. It's like, yeah, we're getting internet and cable, and then he was just like, why the fuck are you getting cable? Just get YouTube TV, and honestly, he was right, because it is getting expensive, and like it's not enough, like like cable isn't the only show in town anymore, and I think that's what a lot of these sports leagues aren't really figuring out, or they're not completely aware of, and they want to get into streaming. I don't think it's that they don't want to get into streaming, but they don't want to like commit full force to it. Because like the NFL experience with it, I think this past year they had like a game that was exclusively on Peacock, if I remember correctly, of like one of their playoff games or something, right? And then like the Thursday night games are on streaming. Well, you can watch it on Twitch too, but that's streaming.
That's an element of the Prime Video thing too that I guess could result in a positive way for trying to get a younger fan base into NASCAR. Having it on a platform like Twitch, where a lot of younger people are watching their favorite YouTubers and streamers and whatnot, and getting a chance to interact with them.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's impacted the NFL with their Thursday night football programming, but I know a lot of people do get it's kind of like free TV at that point because Twitch doesn't cost you any money.
Mm-hmm. I know to me, like looking this over, and again, I'm not up to par on the climate around NASCAR. Outside of Kaleb and a mutual friend of ours, like the only NASCAR fans I've ever really met are like an older generation. So, like I don't know how this deal necessarily works for the fans because again, like I feel like it's an older generation that aren't going to be privy on the techie internets and
like I said, that's a generation that's kind of stuck in their way, creatures of habit. They're going to be really annoyed when they have to figure out how the hell to work Amazon Prime and what the hell is HBO Max when their cable probably has TNT.
Yeah,
they're not a base that really wants to change, and it does get quite annoying that now these races are all on three or four different services, and another element to that is a lot of these old timers, they like everything NASCAR, and Amazon Prime will be carrying most of the practice and qualifying sessions, which too long didn't read it. To figure out where they start on race day, they have these practices to get the car going, and then they have their qualifying lap to figure out who's fastest, and whoever's fastest is going to start at the front. And that's all going to be carried out on Prime, I believe, if I read that correctly. And then with their truck and Xfinity series, which you can compare to minor league in baseball or G League in hockey, in basketball, excuse me. That's their lower ranked series, but a lot of people love watching those trucks and watching the Xfinity series and the other car. So that's getting a little wonky too. Now that's all on one channel. The CW, I don't think I've ever watched the CW once in my life. Maybe when they had that one morning wrestling show on like Saturday morning way back when.
Yeah. Yep.
I knew that you guys would pick up on that. That was the last time I had heard of the CW. So seeing that was weird. I think, like I said, this is going to be better received by the younger fans, which there isn't many. Like that population isn't large. But we'll see how it goes in the first year in 2025. 2024, it's the last year of this traditional half and half break. Trent, as far as your experience with streaming in sports or any other opinions that you might have, or how you think it'll go over, just anything really before we go on to the meat and potatoes of the show here.
Cautiously, I think it's a good idea because there may be some growing pains at first, but you can't keep catering to 65 and up. You just can't do that. Even if that is the biggest chunk of your audience, I don't mean to come off as crass, but who knows that is going to keep aging out. You need to have this adjustment getting to younger fans, and I think that's smart. I think the NFL, you brought it up perfectly with it doing record numbers on Thursday Night Football.
That Despite having probably the worst games every week on
exactly
on tap.
Yeah, and that's a great point to add. And it's not because like you said, the games are getting better and better and better. If anything, they're getting worse. It's because less and less people are able to stop illegally streaming these games and just watch them. Hey, I have Prime. Let's just watch it here. It goes back to, pay-per-view died a slow and painful death 10 years ago. That's why the WWE Network was such a cutting edge thing with the $9.99, you get everything. And people laughed at it at first, and now ESPN and everyone else is trying to follow suit. I think it's smart to keep it half and half to where you're moving this younger generation further along into what you want to become, but you're still making it easily enough accessible to the fans who are old enough to the point where they just don't care enough to figure out everything when it comes to streaming and Prime and Peacock and things like that to get a hold of it. At face value, I think it's a great deal for him.
And especially because I don't know if I need to share this information with you, or you can probably figure it out on your own. The middle of the season for NASCAR is typically where the ratings go down. That's where you get a lot of your less popular races. Like, I think typically my local race up in New Hampshire at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, that's one of the least watched races in the season, smack dab in the middle, right before the All-Star break, in the middle of June, early July. So experimenting with those races and putting them on the streaming platform, having that cut in the middle, and then having your two big networks in the front with Fox and Daytona, having the Daytona 500, having that first Talladega Super Speedway race, a lot of those fun races, and then having the last bit on NBC, where it's just typically, I feel like across all sports, NBC is like the pinnacle of, like, there's Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football is the best quality you're going to get. Like, straight up, hands down, every week, Sunday Night Football is the best production. I feel like whenever you see I don't know if the NBA does a ton on NBC nowadays. I think NHL still does, and a lot of
NHL hasn't been on NBC.
Really? Okay, never mind. So maybe just football then. So maybe that's the best example. Football on NBC, that's their high quality stuff. And I feel like even though they trade around the Super Bowl every year, I still think that NBC's presentation is still outmatched. So I think that's the pinnacle right there. And then you have your Fox, which is just your classic, give you a little bit of a nostalgia element, and then experimenting with these races in the middle that have lower ratings anyway. See if you could jack those up. So it's going to be a growing pain and growing experiment, like Trent said, but ultimately, hopefully it pans out into getting a bunch of younger fans into it, because I think, honestly, the single biggest deterrent of getting new NASCAR fans is the old heads who are just unbelievably intolerant of like anything post 1970. And I know that sounds like exaggerating, and it is a little bit. It's a little disingenuous, but you know how old people are. They can be kind of repellent to younger people because they just don't want to bring them in. I don't know what old people's problem is with younger people, just in general.
I will say, just to kind of, because Trent brought up a really good point with the accessibility of it all and being available. Like, there is evidence in other leagues that just simply, I know it sounds so obvious, but if you make games accessible and easier to watch, fans will watch them. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest team in the world. As a matter of fact, the one example I can think of, this was something I was seeing. My big thing is covering hockey. It's what I do for a living. The Arizona Coyotes, before this season, they are the pinnacle of a team that is just going through a lot. Kaleb understands it. Just to kind of wrap it up in a neat little bow for you guys, there's a decent chance that the Arizona Coyotes aren't even in Arizona by the 2024-25 season.
Damn shame.
So, that is how dire their situation is. They're playing in a 5,000 seat college arena.
Hey, respect Arizona State. They got I think they got a top 10 hockey program over there. Top 10 ranked.
I haven't checked the NCAA ratings.
I know New Hampshire dropped a couple of spots because they lost one game to RIT.
Yeah, well, shout out to the NHL factory that is the Michigan Wolverines. But
we'll talk about Michigan in a little bit.
But the overall point I'm trying to is that they have all this off ice stuff. There's a lot of fans in the area that are really upset with ownership and all
Didn't
that.
they draft Mitchell Miller?
Yes, they did draft Mitchell Miller, which is a whole thing that
Trent, when you get a second, look up Mitchell Miller.
Yeah. But the overall point I'm trying to make is that this is a team that has so much going wrong for it off the ice. They're not the greatest team on the ice, but they're a really competitive team to watch. They have a really good head coach. Their viewership after leaving Bally Sports and moving to this channel or this provider that's available both on antenna and on multiple cable providers has gone up 900%. 900%. This isn't the greatest team. This isn't the Vegas Golden Knights. This isn't an original 16 like the Canadians, Red Wings, or Rangers. This isn't the Bruins. This is a team that is, by all rights, probably should have left Arizona like 15 years ago, and may not be there for much longer. Are playing in an arena smaller than the one that Kaleb, Brian, and I went to in Hamilton in April or March or whatever.
Just found out who Mitchell Miller was.
Yeah. Why'd you make me look him up? Why'd you make me look him up?
But yeah, like this is not a good team, but because fans can just watch the games, all of a sudden they're tuning in. So it's I know again it's very simple for me to say, I'm not in NASCAR league offices and these league offices, but if you there is evidence to say if you can make it work to where you can have the fan watch these games, you're going to get people tuning in.
And another thing to add on to that, just really quickly, Notre Dame football is the same way. Every single Notre Dame home football game is on NBC. It's always on cable. It's the only team in the entire country that no matter what package you have, you're always going to be able to watch.
And if you're that diehard about Notre Dame, you can just buy Peacock.
Exactly. I mean, Notre Dame is either 1A, 1B, or 1C, the biggest brand in college football. And the accessibility of that is absolutely one of the major reasons why that is.
NASCAR's kind of in a weird spot because they can't really. I understand, like, they should be able to do this WWE thing where they just like put all of their resources into being on one platform. Like, if you're just permanently on TNT and all these NASCAR fans just want to do is watch NASCAR, you can just buy HBO Max. Their cheapest plan, and it's going to work out. Like, they should be able to do that. I think NASCAR and WWE are pretty comparable as far as just their operation of things. Even Notre Dame football, even they're an independent thing that go on once a week. They're right on Peacock, right there. I think that's something that they should have considered. Another thing that my boss at Belly Up Sports pitched to me was they do an NFL Plus type thing, and they have their own type of network that has the collection of old races, like the NFL Plus has the collection of old races, and they still have everything that kind of goes on that website. Only the NFL is a little different because they really like you watching that on TV, and they really hate the development of their website. You ever try to watch Red Zone on that thing? You're better off using Stream East. But all right, that's enough TV talk. We are obviously not the guys in the suits and wigs up in the production meetings talking about, oh, how can we get our viewership up 3%? We're just kind of reacting to the news at that point. But Tristin, I know that you and Trent have been sitting on this for a couple of days. There's been a little bit of a disagreement here on a certain somebody with a certain microphone saying certain things on Monday night. I don't want to spoil and ruin your thunder too much, so I'll just let you kind of run with it, and then I'll let you and Tristin duke it out like the old days.
Yeah.
I hope I did a good job instigating that.
I don't. I'm hoping we don't have to instigate too much because I don't know how deep the disagreement runs. But basically, for those who watched our just a beautifully chaotic episode of the Beatsides on that we recorded
featuring my little brother
with his little brother and our good friend Elcio, we CM Punk comes back to WWE. It is one of the biggest returns, or at least most shocking returns in wrestling history. With all the baggage of CM Punk going on like the Art of Wrestling in 2014 and saying all the things he said on that podcast or both those podcasts, and then being out of the game for 7 years while just continuously talking about how he'll never go back to WWE, shit talking WWE. Even when he gets back to AEW, he has all these like shots at WWE, like the one infamous promo with MJF where he's like, you go over there and the main event of night 4 of a buy one get one free extravaganza thing, and then when Vince McMahon is ousted, he does the whole like fuck them their thing, that their system's never going to change, this, that, and the third. Like, for all of that to culminate in him returning, that was a huge moment Saturday night. So obviously Monday Night Raw, that's anticipated.
Highly anticipated, yeah.
I was working that night and I had it on as background noise because I wanted to see CM Punk talk. I want to see what he's got to say. I don't really like him much. I don't really know like how he handled himself in AEW, but him as a wrestler, I absolutely respect the work he does. So I wanted to see what was going on. The promo itself was admittedly weird. It was I know Trent
is going past the adjective of weird. He's going right to poo-poo dog shit.
Trent feels a lot more strongly about this, about the quality of the promo than I do. But it was really weird. It was just this I don't want to say like a rah-rah speech, but he did the whole "I'm home" thing, which I don't know. To me, I knew that was coming.
That felt funny. Yeah.
I know a lot of people in our chat. I know a lot of people at wrestling chat got like really surprised that he said that. Or like, oh, I can't believe you would say that. Like, I just kind of saw that coming. Like, because Michael Cole said the same fucking thing earlier in the show. CM Punk is home. I'm like, yeah, okay, they're gonna run this thing that he's home or whatever. The whole thing was just weird because he was clearly cut for time. He was like clearly pressed for time because the whole show just ended abruptly, at least on my screen. So I didn't think it was going to be this huge deal, and I go on Twitter, and just so many people are talking about how this is like the worst thing ever. Wrestling sucks. Da, 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 da. You have one contingent of CM Punk fan that are like writing like 8-page dossiers and like 16-page dissertations about how he's like he's like soulless, and he's like oh, he's so depressed, and he's like one My Chemical Romance. He's like one My Chemical Romance song away from just ending it all. Like it is just the PG Punk, like you were saying. And then they have another contingent of wrestling fan who were like, oh, the fuck him, fuck this. Like I remember one tweet was like, oh, he should have just went out there and told everybody to hold his nuts. Why didn't he tell the Young Bucks to go play in traffic? Like it was just this huge just outcry of like, I can't believe this. It seemed like the promo like personally attacked their family. And I don't get it. It was just, I understand that the promo was weird, and if you think the promo was bad, that's fair. It's certainly a disappointing promo, but I don't think it deserved. I think that the vehement like anger and the cope involved in it just was overblown to me. I don't think that it was this huge like I don't know. There have been like weirder things said and more hypocritical things said and all that kind of stuff that I feel like warrant like a reaction. That one just kind of seemed like an inoffensive, like, hey guys, I'm Bat promo. I don't know, Trent. I know you feel strongly on this. I'll hand this over to you.
Well, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble. I don't feel like super strongly about it, but I do disagree. I do disagree to the extent that, I mean, it's his first promo in a WWE Ring for 10 years. In 10 years. He is not, he just came back. It's the first thing he's really doing other than walk out on the stage in Chicago a couple days prior. And he didn't really say much of anything. And I get he's pressed for time, and it wasn't the worst promo in the world by any means, but you can't not compare it to the first dance. You can't not compare it to his first promo when who first showed up in AEW. They look like two completely different people, and they shouldn't really. I think the reason why it felt so weird is because he's just not being honest. I don't know any other way to say it. I mean, CM Punk, we're talking about on the short list of like greatest talkers of all time: Steve Austin, Randy Savage, John Cena. Like, he's on that list with those guys. And
hey, put some respect on The Rock. I didn't hear you say him.
Oh, The Rock. I mean, I could go on and on. Plenty of guys.
There are a number of guys that we could talk about with us, like the all-time talkers.
I just wanted to make sure that we put The Rock on the list, okay? Like, we're not going to snub him.
Yeah, well, no, I think all those guys are better than The Rock that I just said. That's another.
No, I'm with you. But
but it's weird that he comes out. First of all, the I'm home thing is laughable. And maybe it is all a character. Maybe this is all in the storyline. They're setting it up for him and Seth, which I think it's hilarious that they're setting up Seth again in another feud.
Yeah.
Where it's me against the AEW guy. You tried to ruin my company, rah, rah, rah. And everybody's going to be rooting against Seth Rollins. I don't think that's great for Seth. I really hope that, as an aside, if they do that match, I really hope Seth wins that match.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I'm with you.
I would feel very much a type of way. If that's all.
If I'm Seth Rollins, like, just get off this because I thought this was like, if I'm Seth Rollins, and I've been the literal fucking flag bearer of this company for the past however many years, and I'm like so much so that I'm like getting into like spats with like Will Ospreay and all these other wrestlers on Twitter and be like, oh, you're in the minor leagues, kid. Da, da, da. Just literally the human embodiment of the stand up for WWE memes. And then this guy who spent 7 years away literally doing everything he could to be like, no, this place sucks. Oh, everybody don't go to WWE, make your money elsewhere. Da, da, da. And then he comes back, cuts one or two promos in a segment or whatever, and then at the next big pay-per-view he beats me for my title, presumably. I would, if I was Seth, I'd be real mad.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if I were Seth and they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna put Punk over," I would very much feel some type of way. But
I feel some type of way as a fan, even at the idea of that.
Yeah, and look, I'm the same way as Tristin. I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of how things allegedly went with CM Punk and AEW and this, that, and the other. I'm always gonna be a supporter of CM Punk. I mean, just growing up, I mean, what Steve Austin was for people 20 years ago, CM Punk was for people our age for the most part. It was either John Cena or CM Punk. It was like one or the other. And
I guess I'm the only Cena fanboy on the panel.
Oh no! Like I
transitioned from John Cena to CM Punk when I was a kid, and I still
what was the year? What was the turning point? Was it that Money in the Bank match that was the turning point for you, or because for me,
I love CM Punk from like the second he got to WWE. Like I remember vividly.
You got it way before I did, so
I don't know why this is like a core memory for me, but I was on vacation. And we were driving to wherever we were going. I think it was Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I was watching ECW in our hotel room. My parents had both gone to sleep, and I saw CM Punk. I was like, that guy rules. And then I saw, like, as you grow on, like more and more and more. Like, a lot of people love CM Punk from day one. But even then, and you guys know my opinions about Seth Rollins. I don't hate the guy or anything, but I'm certainly not his biggest fan.
No, that title belongs to LCO.
Yeah, exactly. Even I hope Seth wins that match. But the promo was very weird, and the line at the end, "I'm not here to make friends."
That felt even weirder.
Well, that didn't feel. That actually made the rest of it make more sense to me, because now it seems like, I
thought it was weird. He's like, no, everybody's hugging me backstage, kissing me on the mouth, yada yada yada, and then like, actually, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. And then he does a victory lap.
It made the rest of it feel very tongue in cheek.
I think the fact that he didn't say that into the mic either, it makes that where he's presenting himself one way to the audience, but then he looks into the camera at the boys in the back and he's like, "Hey, this is how I actually feel. This is the actual me." I don't disagree that the promo was weird. It 100% was weird. Yeah, he did say a lot of shit that was just like, that's not CM Punk. My only thing is that for me, and maybe I'm just like, if I was like 5 years younger, I think I would probably join in with the seething just vitriol and the anger and all around the promo and all that. But for me, I just feel like I don't. It's the first promo. Like that's just kind of my hang up, as it is with Jimmy as the first promo. If he goes out there next week and he's doing the same thing and it doesn't look like it's going to be a character and this is just like how he feels or whatever, then yeah, we can start talking about, okay, like, dude, come on, like, you were out here, like, I remember you talking all that shit in AEW, like, a casual WWE fan might not know what you were saying over there or whatever. He might not even know that WWE or AEW even exists, but, like, come on, a lot of people in those arenas, the people who are buying those tickets, have a decent idea at the very least of what's going on.
Do we think that... okay, go ahead.
What were you going to say?
I was going to pose a question, but you're replying to something, so go.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that it goes into, I mean, at the same time, in Punk's defense, what's he supposed to say? He acted like a jerk at the other place. He got fired, from what it sounds like, for good reason.
By one Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look, if Bryan Danielson doesn't like you and I don't know if he doesn't like him or not, but if Bryan Danielson thinks you deserve to get fired, you probably deserve to get fired. But that's besides the point. Gets fired from that place, and now his options are TNA and WWE.
Or NWA, which was the funniest thing possible.
Ice Cube wanted to hire CM Punk?
Exactly. Anyway, what?
Ice Cube wanted to hire CM Punk for the NWA?
No, you don't know.
No, that was just a joke.
Okay, all right, my bad. Yeah.
NWA, straight out of Compton, anything? No, nothing.
Yeah. No, I get the joke. It's just...
I'm wrestling pilled right now.
Yeah,
like, we're not talking about that.
You hit us with that at the wrong time, buddy.
Yeah,
There was
but
no other
it's-
time to hit that, Tristan. There was
Yeah,
then or
like,
never.
what is he supposed to say? Oh yeah, I acted like a jerk. I know I hate this place, but I kind of need to wrestle somewhere because he's obviously got the itch again. He can't say that, and that's why I think the more I thought about it, the saving grace of the I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money. That felt like the first honest thing he said in that entire promo. And knowing Punk, that probably is by design, but I don't blame people for being pissed at sitting through 3 hours of what was a pretty mediocre Raw at best.
Randy carried. It turned into a B plus just because of him.
Yeah, there was also like an hour and a half long tag team match too.
I skipped that.
Yeah, well, I watched it live, just
Hour and
like
a
2
half?
million other people. So I don't blame people for being.
And then we had Nia Jax right after that.
I
Yes.
try not to talk too poorly about people, but I don't blame people for being pissed about waiting 3 hours.
It's okay. Me and Tristan will say it.
I can understand that, but I really feel like there's just like from my experience, I didn't really see the people. I didn't really see that type of like I sat there for 3 hours for this. I saw he's soulless. He's this. He's that. He's the third. I saw one that was like, oh, he should just tell everybody to hold his nuts and who cares about personal growth and professional wrestling and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, like in terms of like the content of the promo, like that is where I'm like let's calm down a second because this is just the first one. But if like obviously if you're disappointed in having to wait 3 hours for that, especially since it was less than 10 minutes long because WWE uploaded the whole thing on their YouTube thing, like that I can understand. Like I'm not like I was disappointed. That's not what I wanted. It's not what I thought I was gonna get. But I don't know, like I don't know, like in terms of content, like what, like you said, what's he supposed to say? Because it's not like he can it's not like he can just go out there and like talk about what happened in AEW. He's not gonna go out there and start talking about like he dropped the line when he came back in Collision of like I'm the one genuine article in an industry full of counterfeit bucks. Or he's not. I don't think it would be really smart for him to go on WWE and say something about I break real glass barriers or something like that, some thinly veiled shot at Jack Perry or whatever. I don't know. It's just I feel like that if you're disappointed that you had to wait and all that kind of stuff, that's fine. Like I completely understand that. But if we're talking about like if you're like your anger is what he actually said and you're jumping straight to wrestling sucks, straight to he's this, straight to he's that after just one promo, that to me is weird. And that to me feels it's overblown. That to me is like reactionary knee-jerk type of thing, in my opinion.
Well, and you're right. I'm not saying this to argue with you because you're absolutely right. It is a very knee-jerk reaction.
Well,
But
it's wrestling fans too. They're all mentally 12.
well,
Fair enough.
I don't even know. I don't even know if it's that because football fans are the same way. I mean, if you draft a guy first overall and he has a horrible first game, I mean, people are going to be calling for the general manager's head, things like that. But I think the important thing to remember about CM Punk is I kind of put it like this. The only thing worse than hatred is indifference.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has a strong opinion about CM Punk, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. It's the same thing with John Cena.
Polarizing character.
Everybody has a super, super strong opinion about CM Punk. So, and a lot of wrestling fans have a very deep connection with him, whether it is being upset about how he left WWE or the relationship with him through AEW, or a lot of people got back into wrestling or got back into WWE specifically solely because of CM Punk. So when he does something or switches teams, he's a very polarizing person. People are going to react because if you polled every wrestling fan in America or even North America, if you wanted to do that, and said, hey, list your top 20 favorite wrestlers and your top 20 least favorite wrestlers, I guarantee you CM Punk would show up on either one of the lists for 99% of people.
And he'd be within the top 5 of probably both lists, maybe top 10.
Yeah, most likely. I think somebody said, I can't remember who it was, but I saw on Twitter, I think it was Triple H, whether you like him or you don't like him, he gets people talking. And that's
Triple H did say that right after the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
About the only objective thing you can say about CM Punk right now is that, and I think it's a super intelligent comment because, I mean, he's going to stir up emotions with everybody.
So the question I was going to pose was, maybe kind of a loaded question, but one, does the promo any better if you have him kick off the show instead of waiting until the very, very end? And two, how much did that time constraint having him have like 4 minutes to address the crowd really impacted what he could have said otherwise? So I'll pitch it to whoever wants it.
I think, I mean, I'll kick it. I don't have too much to say about it, but I think, yes, the time constraint probably did hurt it a little bit. I still expect, a guy as good as CM Punk to recover better than he did, but it's semantics at that point. It's a very awkward situation for him just as much as it is for everybody else, I'm sure. But I think that definitely had an effect on how the promo came off, and I think people wouldn't have been upset. Now, the people saying that and I'm not saying this is my opinion, but people on Twitter saying that he's caved to WWE. Oh, that man looks like he's lost his fire. Da 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 da. That would still be there, but I don't think people would have been as upset if that kicked off the show. Then they'd be like, oh, well, okay, wait till next week. But I think I was upset when I waited 3 hours, and that's all I saw. I know that, and there's a lot.
Would you have felt a little better if it was the first thing you saw?
100%, because I think there's a lot of people who, I mean, you saw they almost did 2 million viewers for a Raw, which is unheard of these days. There were hundreds of thousands of people who tuned in,
and they would have, and that I think that number would have carried for the end, so they could see Randy. I think it would have been enough.
I don't think it would have carried as much, but I think seeing Randy wrestle for the first time in a year and a half, I think they would have done a solid third hour, which they don't usually do.
The fact that it's 3 hours makes me want to blow my brains out. But Tristin, pitching the question to you. One, does him opening up the Raw on Monday night make that promo well received? And two, is the quality maybe a little better if it kicks off first? Or would it have been generally the same?
I think that the time constraint did have a pretty big impact on it, and I do think that I feel like him kicking off Raw. I feel like this maybe the one thing that we could all agree on is like him main eventing Raw per se, which is kind of a weird decision because like I can understand a little like, oh, this is the biggest moment in WWE in the past however many years. CM Punk has returned after all of these things that were said and whatnot. But I don't know. To me, it's just that's the moment that you have to understand that like that's the moment that people want to see. Why make them wait the 3 hours? Just give it to them. Like Cody Rhodes came back at WrestleMania, fought Seth Rollins, beat him, and then the next time out, he's starting the show and he's giving his speech about why he's back. Why did he leave the other place? What is his goal here? And he essentially just gave his mission statement. Like, that's all you really need to do is just have Punk end the show and at Survivor Series, have him come on Monday Night Raw to start the show, give him 20 minutes, and because apparently I saw a report of there was a lot more that he had to say, or there was a lot more that they were going to go in depth with. Now, if it was just this vague gesturing of oh well, some people didn't like me, ha 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 ha, aren't I CM Punk? Yeah, sure, that's weird. And I think that the reactions are a little bit more justified in my opinion. But if they were able to go more in depth with what this is, and they would maybe show a little bit better that maybe this is supposed to be his character, maybe the whole hypocritical thing is the point. Because I know Seth during his time earlier in the show made it a point to call CM Punk a hypocrite. I don't know. I feel like overall, more than anything, having him kick off the show would have been a much better idea, just because you don't really run into potentially having him cut for time. And I think I don't know. I like CM Punk. Trent's right. CM Punk is good enough to bounce back from that and overcome that. But I still think that that's going to have an effect.
I mean the reason why I think, just to answer why I think they had Punk come out last, is to get that rating as good as it was, because I think they would have had a massive drop the second CM Punk's segment ended had they kicked off with the show. And it's also important to remember that they're in LA right now pitching Raw TV rights to Warner Brothers, to I believe NBC, to Fox, to all these major networks. And now they can go to them and say, hey, CM Punk brought this much of a jump. This guy is now going to be on Raw. This guy is now going to be on SmackDown. Now our show is even more valuable. And the ratings, I guarantee you, look a whole lot better today than they would have had he opened up the show. So I guarantee you the situation they are right now with the TV rights.
So there's a lot of external factors that went into this that maybe hindered the quality. Okay.
Yeah, it may have hindered the quality, but at the end of the day, all they care about is the numbers. It's been that way with WWE for decades now. So.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fun little wrestling topic. Anybody have any ideas what they're doing with Punk? Does anybody know yet? Or are we just sitting here sitting on our hands waiting for him to either call out Dirty Dom or him to call out Seth Rollins? Do we have any clue on what's the first thing that's going to happen?
In the short term, as in like next week or the week after, not really. The three, from all reports, the three guys that are getting thrown around for CM Punk are Seth Rollins. I mean, Seth is happening. Whether it's at the Royal Rumble or it's Mania, that's happening. Roman Reigns is going to happen. Which the Paul Heyman wrinkle with Roman Reigns and Punk is super interesting.
Listen, they did a custody of Dominic Mysterio match between Guerrero and between Eddie and Ray in like SummerSlam 2005. They just need to do a custody of Paul.
Custody of Paul.
I mean, shoot, they already did the custody of Paul thing with Brock. With Brock, I feel like they do a custody of Paul Heyman match every like.
Okay, well, you see, custody has changed hands, so CM Punk's got to go fight for his son or father or whatever. I don't know.
His uncle, yeah.
And then the Stone Cold.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, we did talk about that earlier.
Yeah, it has been pitched. It sounds like it's in the very early stages, but it's got some smoke to it for sure.
I actually was just because WWE uploaded this like CM Punk, the unlikely story of CM Punk playlist video or whatever it was. And one of the things that was in there was his little interaction with Stone Cold. It was like the GM of Raw or whatever.
Yep.
And like I was watching that and I'm like, you know what? I know that was 2011, but I kind of want to. I just like that feels like such a spectacle that I do kind of want to see like what a Stone Cold CM Punk match would look like. I
don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Kaleb, you almost definitely haven't. Tristan, you may have. There for WWE 13.
I know what you're talking about.
Yep. Stone Cold and CM Punk did a 10-minute sit down promotional interview with Jim Ross moderating, and it was supposed to be about the video game, but it's 10 minutes of them going at each other in this very passive aggressive way that only they can. It's awesome.
Yeah, I need to go watch that then.
I'll send you the link after we're done. It's really
good. I remember WWE 13. That was the first game the second or third game that I had bought.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I got 2K23 on my Xbox. Fucking John Cena 2003 is kicking my ass in the showcase mode. That's what happens when you make me play with the most overrated superstar in WWE history, The Undertaker. That's a hot take.
Not as hot as you would think.
Tristan told me I was on crack.
No, I didn't say you were on crack. I just said that was a hot take.
I wouldn't agree with it. I think The Undertaker gets underrated to an extent, but I understand why he gets underrated in some ways, he gets overrated in others. I think a lot of fans really overrate how like good Undertaker was. I think that's my biggest problem with him. I'm like, I don't know if he was good enough to deserve that whole WrestleMania streak thing and have that be as big of a spectacle as it was. That was a lot of backdoor politic, and he was like one of the better locker room guys, leaders, yada yada yada. I get it, but he was never my cup of tea. Apparently, the way the story goes is that they didn't even realize it was a thing for a while, and I think The Undertaker at first wasn't great, but by 2006, I would say he got really good. I mean, they didn't have many big match wrestlers that were as consistent as he was. I mean, you look at WrestleMania 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. I mean, that's 6 or 7 straight matches every year at WrestleMania, banger after banger after banger with all these different guys. And not many people can say that. Like Cena was, I think, 4-0 or 5-0 before he lost his first Mania match. Edge was
That was like 5-0 or something like that. Yeah.
Edge was like 7 or 8-0.
Was he?
He lost his first match. Yeah. Because he didn't lose until I think Taker.
Was it?
No, 2023. WrestleMania 23 was the first time he lost.
Who did he face at WrestleMania 23?
That Money in the Bank.
Oh. Okay.
Does that really
Yep.
count?
If it does, if that doesn't count, then 24. But I'm trying to think off the top of my head because WrestleMania 16, him and Christian won the ladder match. WrestleMania 17, him and Christian won the ladder match. 18, I can't remember off the top of my head what he did. WrestleMania 19, he was out for neck surgery, so he didn't wrestle. I don't believe he wrestled at WrestleMania.
I don't remember him wrestling at 20
either. 21, he won Money in the Bank. 22, he beat Mick Foley, and then Money in the Bank. So,
And 2 years later, he got the double attitude adjustment with Big Show.
yes, he did.
That was the first game I had that year. I got it like a couple of years late. I don't think I got into wrestling until like 2012, like right after the first Rock Cena match. So obviously, I got into it at a horrible time to be a Cena fan.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
But all right, that was my wrestling hot take. Undertaker overrated. Feel free to bash me in the comments, but we do have one more topic. Trent is gonna get the most out of this, I think. I just like picking teams to win or lose and give out the points and the spread and all that fun stuff. I like being the host of that conversation. Tristan's just here for the vibes, as somebody would say. As I close that tab like an idiot. Okay, you guys keep talking. I need to go find that again. Somebody. Okay, no, never mind. We got it.
Okay, never mind.
All right, you got it. Okay.
I don't know why that tab closed. That was weird. All right, so we got the college football championships this weekend. We're going through all of them, whether they take 2 seconds for us to pick because we have no idea what we're talking about, or we'll take 10 minutes to talk about it, like Michigan and Iowa. We're saving that for last. So on Friday, December 1st, tomorrow, we have Conference USA, New Mexico State at Liberty. I believe that's Liberty as a 10.5 point favorite.
Looks like Liberty's.
I believe that's the vibe here. They did a really good job of like telling me which one is the favorite. I think the second team on this is the favorite. Just looking back at it, because at the bottom they have Michigan versus Iowa, and it says plus 23. I assume that Michigan isn't a 23-point underdog, so I'm just gonna run with it.
Yep.
So the first game, New Mexico State at Liberty. Liberty 10.5 favorites. I will ride with God, I can't even think of a fucking Liberty alumni. William Byron sponsor. That's what we'll go
Willis.
with.
Didn't he go to Liberty?
Yeah, I'm not gonna ride with Malik Willis. You kidding me? Got beat up by Mailman. I'm good on that. Give me Liberty. Anybody else? Thoughts?
Yeah, I'll take
jokes.
I'll take Liberty. Just I'm an American, so I'll take Liberty.
Well, Liberty has been a solid team all year, but New Mexico State has a really good defense. They absolutely killed Auburn at Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium just 2 weeks ago.
So 10.5 might be a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, did you say Liberty is favored by 10.5?
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know much about either team, but I'm taking New Mexico State plus 10.5 all day. So
like that. Very much like that. We gave more to that than I thought we would. Tomorrow, again, this is the Pac-12 championship game, the soon-to-be dead Pac-12 championship game. Oregon versus Washington. Washington, 9.5 point underdogs to Oregon. I know that Washington has a little bit of the yips when it comes to turnovers. Oregon been one of the better teams, I think, this year. Washington, I think they're in the top 4 after the rankings came out this week.
I was just looking and saw this was like number 5 versus number 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the winner of this is probably going to be in the college football playoff.
Maybe.
Gave me a weird look.
Washington, if they win, they're in. Period. Don't even have to worry about it. If Washington wins, they're 13-0.
Oregon might be a stretch.
If Oregon wins, things might get really weird on Sunday morning.
I'm a big fan of things getting weird. Give me Oregon. Give me the Ducks.
Well, Tristan, I got a lot to say. Do you want to say anything before I jump in? Or
I mean, I'll just go give my predictions. I've been like I'm not gonna claim that I know a lot about each of these teams, but I feel like I've seen a lot of good things out of Washington, so I'll take Washington. I think their quarterback's Michael Penix Jr., right? Am I
Yes,
got
sir.
that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I hear he's pretty prone to throwing some picks.
I've heard a lot of good things about him. I don't know if he's prone to throwing picks or not, but I've like their turnaround has just been like I did not expect them to be like a huge. Again, I'm not well versed on this. I'm not trying to hate on the program or nothing, but for them to be number 3 is impressive to me. I'll take that, and I'll let Trent say what he got to say.
It's a very weird spot, and it's also a perfect example of why head-to-head doesn't matter as much as people think it should in some sense, because Washington beat Oregon earlier this year in Seattle. They beat them. Michael Penix at the end of that game was everybody's clear Heisman frontrunner. There was no second. But since that game, Washington has looked worse and worse and worse and worse by the week. They're still winning. A win is a win is a win, and all that good stuff. But Oregon, since that game, has looked like, for lack of a better term, a 10,000-pound rolling ball of chainsaws. They have been slaughtering teams left, right, and center, leaving no doubt in any of these games that they're playing. And that's why they're 9.5-point favorites, because Oregon looks like, if you ask any college football fan right now, who are the 3 best teams in the country just off straight eye test, they will tell you Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon. I can't imagine any argument for any other 3 teams than that. So Oregon
Roll Tide.
What?
I said Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Well, I would have put Alabama on that list too, because they've been looking great, but that Auburn game was rough. But it's the Iron Bowl. Things get weird in the Iron Bowl. I think there's a lot of people saying that 9.5 might not be big enough for this game. There's a lot of people picking Oregon to just roll Washington. I'll take Oregon, but I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that they would cover 9.5.
All right, so we got Ducks, and Washington. Quack on, baby. What's up next? On Saturday, we got Miami of Ohio. I don't know their mascot name. Big Ben Roethlisberger's alma mater. They're taking on Toledo. Toledo is a 7.5-point favorite. The over/under is at 44. Give me Toledo. Ohio's weird. It doesn't exist. I don't know anything about either of these teams. I'll take Toledo 7.5. Sure. They'll make 7.5 happen. Tristan?
Well, I've driven through Toledo. I can confirm it exists. I'm not so sure about Miami, Ohio. All honestly, I probably won't watch this game because I sleep during the day because I work at night. But I
You
really
can count on me not watching any of these games.
I really hope this game is good because it's at Ford Field. I'll take Toledo just for vibes, I guess. I don't really have too much to, I know this might be a bad look for me, but I don't know too much about these two teams. But I hope it's good and hope the Ford Field crowd gets their money's worth.
And again, this is for the MAC championship.
Action, baby. Gotta respect it.
Trent, what do you got?
I don't know much about Miami of Ohio. I haven't heard much about them all year, but consistently this entire season, Toledo has been one of the better G5 teams in the entire country. They've been in that conversation for potentially going to a New Year's Six Bowl. Kaleb, just in case you're not aware of how it works, but the New Year's Six Bowl, the 6 biggest bowl games.
Yeah.
The highest ranked G5 team in the country at the end of the year always gets a trip to one of those games. Toledo is in that conversation most of the year. I'll take them, and I'll take them to cover.
Alrighty, then that is for the Maction Bowl. Up next, we got Big 12. No defense is allowed. We got Oklahoma State taking on Texas with a quarterback that might stay and force another quarterback to leave. Texas is a 14.5-point favorite for the 2023 Big 12 championship. I assume that if it's a 14.5 spread, that they expect Texas to just blow the doors off them. And I know nothing about Oklahoma State. I know Texas is a pretty solid football team. And I think it would be a mistake for Quinn Ewers to go to the draft. I think he should stay another year. And Texas can figure out what the hell to do with Wonder Kid Manning playing backup. I'll take Texas 14.5. It feels like a lot, but they don't play defense there, so I can feel it being weird. So I'll take Texas with that huge spread. Tristin?
Man, I have watched like one Texas game. I watched them play. I think it was Alabama earlier in the year. They looked good then, but that was like really early in the season. I don't know how they've fared since then. But part of me just wants me to go with Oklahoma State just for chaos reasons. I don't know if it's actually gonna be chaotic, but it would be chaotic to me. So I'm gonna go Oklahoma State. It's probably not gonna happen, but vibes, I guess.
Tristin? Not Tristin. Trent?
I can go again if you want me to.
Yeah, just repeat that whole thing.
I feel pretty confidently that Texas is about to roll Oklahoma State. And I would confidently pick them to cover. Texas is getting better and better. Texas is probably the most disrespected team in the country, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. They have one loss this year, and that loss was on a last-second touchdown in arguably the second or third most heated rivalry in all of college football on a neutral site. Texas is peaking at the right time. They just killed Texas Tech last weekend. Oklahoma State, ever since they won Bedlam and beat Oklahoma a few weeks ago, they seem like they kind of cashed in their chips that week, and they're kind of just been hanging on by a thread. They're lucky to even be in the Big 12 title game. I think Quinn Ewers and this Texas offense, even without Jonathan Brooks, I think they're going to roll.
So you're saying hook 'em horns?
Hook 'em. I hope Texas makes the playoff. I think they deserve to.
Actually, my contrarian is on the side, because I'm not huge on college football, so there's a lot I don't know, but
I'm a New Englander, so obviously I don't give a fuck.
I have a question, because I do see that Texas is number 7. First of all, what would it take for Texas to get into the college football playoff? And if they were to do it, how would you see them faring against the likes of Michigan?
So I think Oregon would have to win first step.
Actually, I think it would actually help Texas if Oregon lost in a weird way, because you're muddying the waters. So teams that aren't in the playoff right now, so your Texas, your Alabama to a lesser extent, but we can get into that later. Texas, Alabama, Oregon, and we can even throw Ohio State in because Ohio State has a path too in a really weird way still. They need things to be as uniform as possible at the top. They need Georgia to win, Michigan to win. Michigan's not going to lose. I really don't have much to say about that game. We'll get to that in a second. Georgia, they need Georgia to win. They need Michigan to win. They need Washington to win, and they need Florida State to lose. If those 4 things happen, Texas is going to be in the playoff. No doubt about it, as long as given they beat Oklahoma State. If those things happen, Texas is 1,000% in the playoff.
What if those things happen and they lose?
What? Oh,
What
well,
if all
yeah.
those
I
things
mean,
happen
yeah.
and they lose? Then it gets
If all
chaotic.
those things happen and they lose, Ohio State is making the playoff. I'll just say that Ohio State is going to make the playoff if all those things happen and Texas also loses.
Jesus, can you imagine
This is going to be the most
having a Michigan
chaotic.
versus Ohio State game in the playoff? Oh, that'd be good.
Should have happened.
That'd be good. I agree. I said the same thing. as I was watching those games.
It should have happened last year because then Michigan would have made the national title game.
And then you guys, what? Did you guys get rolled by TCU? Was that it, or was it?
No, we lost by like I think 1.
Oh, okay.
We lost by 1 point.
TCU had a couple huge leads in that game.
It was one of the flukiest games I've ever seen in my life, and I'm not the kind to say, "Oh, Michigan lost; it was a fluke." Blah, 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 blah. There were 4 or 5 very weird things that happened. If Michigan and TCU would have played 100 more times, Michigan would have won 90 of them at least.
Gotcha. All right. So that was the Big 12 championship. After that, Mountain West football, baby. Boise State going to UNLV. This is going to be a tight game. UNLV is only favored by 2, and they're at home, so this really means it's up in the air. Over under at 58.5. Give me the Broncos. Give me Boise State. Feeling that blue field energy as much as they're not going to be on the blue field. They know how to kill ducks over there with that blue field. Every I guess my professor tells me that they have to clean up a lot of like bird carcasses because they're like dive bombing the field thinking it's water, and then they crash land. Like it's a humanitarian crisis over there in Boise with those with that blue field. But give me the Broncos over there. I have no idea who's playing for them nowadays. The only like Boise State player that I could think of off the top of my head is like Leighton Vander Esch.
Kellen Moore
from back in the day. Kellen Moore was Boise State.
Kellen Moore, yeah, that's Boise State.
Nice, but it's even. It's an even spread. They don't feel Vegas doesn't feel great about picking this game. Tristan, you taking Las Vegas or are you riding with the Boise State Broncos?
I'm gonna roll with Boise State. For a second, when I once I saw the game was in Vegas, I was like, UNLV's got home field advantage. Now I'll go with Boise State. I don't know. Let's go with Boise State.
Mountain West football, baby. You gotta love it. We can't name a single team over there. Trent?
So UNLV statistically has been one of the better teams in the country this year. Very slept on team. They actually played Michigan back in week 2, I believe. And nobody at the time knew UNLV was going to be anything special. But since then, they rattled off, I think, 7 or 8 wins in a row at least after that Michigan game. I'll go with UNLV. I don't know much about Boise State, but
outside of the fact that they're duck killers now.
Well, I know that. Yeah, I know that. And I know that they used to be awesome 10 years ago. But UNLV, that line has actually moved a lot because I'm pretty sure it opened at Boise State -3.5, about that. So the fact that it's moved that much, I think a lot of the money is coming in on UNLV. So I'll take them and I'll take them to cover.
Sounds fantastic. Up next, the SEC Championship. This is a big one. Georgia versus Bama. I feel like this is like almost always the SEC game lately, isn't it? Like these are 2 of the perennial teams here in college football, and the SEC.
It's been over a decade since the SEC title game has not featured Alabama and or Georgia.
Who was the last team? Like, when was the last time that it wasn't Bama versus Georgia? Like, do you have that at the top of your head?
It was probably Florida and I'm gonna guess Florida and Auburn.
No, but I mean like when did Alabama face somebody that wasn't Georgia or Georgia face somebody that wasn't Alabama?
Last year it was Georgia LSU.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I forgot about the LSU dominance. My apologies to Ken, who I don't know if he's watching this one or not.
From what I can tell, the last time that the SEC championship game didn't have either Alabama or Georgia in it was 2013. It was Auburn and Missouri.
Missouri?
Was it Missouri? That was the Michael Sam year, wasn't it? Wasn't that the year he won Defensive Player of the Year?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he was Michael Sam.
He was a real penetrator on that defensive line.
He was really. Can we not?
It's all
I'm trying to shout him
Sam.
out. Can we talk about Michael Sam? Not talk about how he's gay. 5 seconds.
And what I can tell, actually, I'm assuming.
I was complimenting him. He knows how to penetrate inside.
Just fucking stop. Shut up. I'm on Wikipedia, so I don't know if this is actually, from what I can tell, these are the rankings of like where they were ranked nationally. It looks like Missouri was number 5 that year, and Auburn was 3 at the time the game was played. So
yeah, I didn't know Missouri had made back-to-back title games. I'm looking at that too because I knew Bama Missouri happened, but I didn't know they made it the year that Auburn went back to the Natty.
That's crazy.
But yeah, Alabama, Georgia dominate the SEC title game. Go figure.
And Bama is a 6-point underdog to Georgia, so they're really feeling Georgia on this one. They're really feeling Georgia on this one. There's been a lot of weird things about Bama this year. They opened up and they're like, they're not sure how this is going to go. Obviously, last year you had Bryce Young over there playing with a bunch of nobodies, and it didn't pan out like it usually does for Saban. This year, I guess it feels like it was a little bit better than we thought it could have been. But in any case, I'll take the Bulldogs in this one. Bama just doesn't have that dominant vibe to me that they've had over the last decade. I think Saban is probably cutting it a little close to calling it a career here in the next 5 to 6 years. Maybe I'm being generous with that number. Give me Georgia. 6 points does feel like a lot though. So Bama, I'll take them to make it close. They'll keep it within a touchdown. Tristin, do you have any thoughts on the Bible Belt game here?
I think I'll go Georgia too. From what I've seen from them this year, I mean they're incredible. It is just what they've been the past couple of years. The only weird thing out of Georgia I've really seen is specifically their tight end Brock Bowers, I think his name is. I've seen like so many because like one week I'll see like people praise him. He's like a really good player, amazing NFL prospect. And like I'll see then like the next week I'll see a lot of people like sleeping on him for some reason. I don't know what this like weird fluctuation is. Maybe it's just my Twitter algorithm that's fucking
Most people don't know ball.
So
like they don't know ball.
They're not real ball knowers. I mean, like that's just like the one weird thing that sticks out of my mind with that. But I mean, Georgia's incredible. Alabama's good. I mean, that's
Any Saban team is going to make it interesting.
Yeah. So I'll go with Georgia, and then I'll pass this out to Trent.
This is the hardest game to predict by far for me this weekend. On one hand, Georgia, I think they're up to 29 straight wins in a row. They're about 29, give or take a game there. But the last time they lost to Alabama. Nick Saban has never lost in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I don't believe. And the only time Kirby Smart has ever beaten Nick Saban was in a game where Alabama lost John Mechie and Jamison Williams. They were down there, arguably their two best wide receivers by that point. In my opinion, a very fluky win, not to take away from what Georgia's accomplished. But and then on the other hand, if you go down the line, I think Georgia might be better than Alabama at every single position on the field. So I think 6 points is a lot. It started at 6.5, so it's already starting to move a little bit. I'll take Georgia. I think it's a coin flip game.
But you're with me that Bama's going to keep that real close.
Well, here's the thing. If Alabama keeps it close, I would not be shocked. If Georgia blows them out, I would not be shocked. But I'm not about to bet against Nick Saban. That's all I know. So,
isn't that crazy? We're betting against Bill Belichick before we're betting against Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? All right, we got some of my favorite. We got my favorite conference coming up, but after this one, the AAC championship games. Does anybody know what AAC stands for? American Atlantic? Is that what it is?
Athletic, so. Close. American Athletic.
Oh, okay. SMU at Tulane. Tulane -4 over under at 48. God, I don't know jack about this. Tulane, I'll pick them -4. Sounds about right. Can't name a single player on either of these teams. Tristin, are you gonna do any better?
I mean, I can't name a player, but I've heard some pretty decent things about Tulane here and there. Listen, in 2020 we were promised a red wave. Thankfully, they were all wrong. But in 2023, I will promise a green wave. Tulane's going to pick this one up.
Love that. Trent?
This game most likely will decide which G5 team, which group of 5 team goes to the New Year's Six, if I had to guess. Maybe not, depending on James Madison. I'm not sure legally what's going on with that, if they're even eligible for the New Year's Six, but that's besides the point. Tulane has one of the better defenses in the entire country. They held Ole Miss's offense, which has scored on everybody, to a screeching halt. The only other 2 teams in the country who were able to stop Ole Miss from scoring as much as they wanted were Alabama and Georgia. That tells you how good Tulane's defense is. SMU's nothing to sneeze at either. They're also a very good team, but I'd take Tulane to win as well.
-4, you think that's about right?
I don't know. I don't. Admittedly, I don't know enough about SMU to say, but I'd take the under.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, we got the Fun Belt, baby. The 2023 Sun Belt Championship game, Appalachian State at Troy. Troy is -6.5. 52.5 over under. I don't know anything about these. I wish it was a fun Sun Belt team, but what are you gonna do? I'll take the home team here as I usually do. 6.5, sure. Tristin, are you riding with Appalachian State, the men of the mountains?
Absolutely not. I'm still salty over 2007, even though I was only 7. I'm going with Troy.
You're not messing with the Mountaineers?
Nah, fuck App State.
Appetizer State, you're not with it?
Yeah.
Trent, what do you got?
I'll go with Troy. I don't know much about either of these teams. I know that Troy's head coach is a really hot candidate for a lot of the openings coming up around the country. But Appalachian State also ended James Madison's undefeated streak this year, so I don't think that they're anything to slouch at either. I'll take Troy, and I'll pick App State to cover.
Troy coming off of a 48 to no, that was week 1. They're coming off a win against you. They're on a holy crap. They're on a win streak. They haven't lost since week 4.
Yep.
A lot of blowouts in there too. A lot of blowouts.
What is up with that James Madison thing, by the way? Because I saw something about like they applied for bowl eligibility, but it didn't. They were rejected or something, or like, do you know what's going on with that, Trent?
Yes. So the reason why, James Madison, I believe they started 10-0. It may have been 11-0. I'm pretty sure it was 10-0. James Madison, this is their first year in Division I. They were an FCS team before this. And the NCAA has this stupid rule that you need to be in Division I for, I think, 3 or 4 years before you're bowl eligible. I think it's to acclimate the players, whatever that means.
How can you get acclimated them 10-0?
Exactly. Well, that's why nobody's supposed to come into Division I and just immediately be 10-0. Like James Madison, like I was saying earlier, should be the consensus pick to go to a New Year's Six bowl. I don't know if they're eligible for that. They ended up they tried it in court. They ended up losing. Now James Madison is going to a bowl game because there's not going to be enough eligible teams to make a bowl game. You need to win 6 games to be bowl eligible as a Division I team. There's not enough to hit the quota. So James Madison, and there's another team in a similar situation to James Madison that's also going to be bowl eligible because of this. They're also not even eligible to be ranked in the college football playoff top 25. I don't know if that changes. There's a lot of nuanced things to it that I'm not fully caught up on, but they're going to a bowl game despite the NCAA's best wishes.
Jeez.
Up next, the ACC championship game: Louisville versus Florida State. Florida State 2.5-point favorites, which means it's kind of really a toss-up over under at 48.5. Florida State been one of the top teams in the college football this year. Louisville apparently pretty good themselves. Wish I had the rankings right in front of me, so I got to open up a new tab. They are ranked
14,
15th.
Yep,
15th according to the AP. They're down 6, so they must have lost last week. Yep, they lost 38-31 to Kentucky. Ooh. That's not a great look. Give me Florida State, and they are going into the college football playoff for the first time since somebody want to fill in there?
It would be since the first year, since Oregon slaughtered Jameis in the Rose Bowl. I think it was 2014.
That was Mario Winston.
Yep, Super Mariota. That was his Heisman year. Yeah, they killed that. That was never a game.
Never had a chance.
No, that was a blowout from.
I vaguely remember watching that game. Yeah, that was rough.
They'll make it right. They'll win with a backup quarterback. Give me Florida State, and obviously I'll take the 2.5 points. They'll do it. They're good. Florida State, a good football team. Can confirm. Tristan, anything?
Yeah, I'll take Florida State too. I know they lost their starting quarterback, and that's tough for that kid there, man.
And it is college football career.
His career is done, and that's just, you never want to see that when you're watching sports or anything like that. But yeah, I'll take Florida State. I've heard a lot of good things about them. I haven't gotten the chance to watch them a lot this year, but they are, from everything that I can tell, they're an incredible football team. I think they'll probably end up winning this and making it in.
Trent?
But to add on real quick, this would be the game that I would watch if Michigan wasn't playing tomorrow or Saturday, because I do want to see, because I haven't had a chance to see Florida State, and this is the team I do really want to watch. But Michigan takes priority.
This is outside of Bama, Georgia. This is probably the most important game happening this weekend. And a lot of people looking from the outside in probably wouldn't realize it, but Florida State, it's been a huge argument over the last couple weeks on whether, even if Florida State goes undefeated, do they deserve to go to the college football playoff? Because you can tell just by watching them, they're a completely different team with Tate Rodemaker in at quarterback as opposed to Jordan Travis. It's not even close. I think that Florida State, if you put them up against on a neutral field, if you put them up against Georgia, Bama, Michigan, Texas, Oregon, Washington, they'd be a double-digit underdog against every single one of them right now.
So they're benefiting off a weak conference right now.
Well, it's not that they're benefiting off a weak conference. And now, if Florida State, now I've had my personal own questions about Florida State, but with Jordan Travis, they look like a playoff team. They have an elite defense. They have a ton of playmakers all over the field. Keon Coleman, is right up there with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors for the best wide receivers in the country, and Roma Dunze as well. But they look like a completely different offense with Tate Rodemaker in there. And now it brings up the age-old conversation of most deserving versus top 4 best teams. If they go 13-0, it's hard to keep them out. But at the same time, do you want to take a spot away from a team like Oregon that looks like they could be good enough to win the national title? Nobody would be picking Florida State to win the national title right now. That's why I think everybody in that committee room is praying on their hands and knees that Louisville beats Florida State so they don't even have to worry about it. If Florida State wins, I think they're going to be in the playoff. But just to lay out the scenario, if Florida State wins, Alabama wins, Florida State wins, Alabama wins, Texas wins. And let's say Washington wins and Georgia wins. So Washington's in, Georgia's in. You have 13-0 Florida State, who is undefeated Power 5 champion. You have Alabama, 1-loss team, beat Georgia, ended a 29-game win streak. And then you have Texas, who beat Alabama by double digits in Tuscaloosa. Are you really going to leave Alabama and Texas out over a team you know is going to get boat raced?
I don't envy that conversation. I don't.
Nope, I don't either, and that's why I kind of buried the lead. I think Louisville's going to win. I think they're going to.
So you think that's going to be like?
a million percent. If they could pick the outcome of one game right now, it would be Florida State to lose, because the conversations around Florida State have already gotten toxic. I can only imagine how they're going to get if they actually win. But Louisville just lost to Kentucky. They're going to come in pissed off. Jeff Brom was the coach at Purdue. The coach at Purdue who beat the crap out of Urban Meyer in Ohio State last year there. If you remember, back to 2019. I believe it was 2019. Big game Brom's going to be in effect. I think Louisville is a great defense, and I think this game in particular means a lot more to them than it will to Florida State. And I think Florida State's kind of gotten the wind taken out of their sails. So I'll take Louisville to win. If Florida State wins,
we're coming back next week and we're having an interesting conversation.
I think Saturday night and Sunday morning is not going to be a fun conversation for the people in that committee room if they have to look at a 13-0 Florida State, a team that they know will get absolutely boat raced against any of the teams they could play in the playoff.
Well, then they can just give the podcast we'll take the decision for them. We'll have an interesting conversation, and we'll ultimately just go with Trent says, because he's very knowledgeable on the subject. Me and Tristin are just here along for the ride. And we maybe saved the least interesting game for last.
Yeah.
The 2023 Big Ten championship game. You got Michigan versus Iowa. Iowa, a 23-point underdog. The over-under is at 35.5. Michigan obviously won the Big Ten championship last week. Big win, obviously. Anytime that you can beat Ohio State, you're licking your chops. You're feeling really good about that, especially in a game where you don't got your head coach. It looks like a prime opportunity for a disaster to happen, but it doesn't. It stays strong. Michigan escapes that with the win. And basically clinches a Big Ten championship. Iowa, I think I've seen some stat that. What's the weird stat that I've seen about them? Either they're getting outgained like crazy, and they don't really deserve to be in that spot, or they're not putting up a lot of points. I don't know what the weird take is on Iowa. There's some weird deal with them. If somebody could fill me in.
There's a lot. They're the first team. I believe they're the first team in college football history, at least in modern college football history, to have a 10-win season and average less than 250 yards of offense per game.
Jesus.
Iowa is disgusting. They're one of the nastiest teams in the country to watch. They, every week for the last 6 weeks, they broke a record for the lowest over-under total in college football history. And every single time the under hit. The over-under for Iowa, Nebraska was ended at 24.5. And it was a 13-10 win for Iowa. If that tells you anything about how the defense is incredible. That offense is high school level, and that's putting it lightly. That's why Michigan is favored by 23.5, and the over-under is 32.5. Because Michigan might only need to score 14 points to win the game. They might be able to score 7 points and win this game.
That's bad. Oof.
The over-under, I don't know if you've seen this or not. Do you want to guess what the first half over-under is for Iowa points?
Half a point?
Yeah, it's half a point.
Half a point.
and picking the under is even
minus.
Money.
Yeah,
it's even money. Yeah, it's even money for them to be completely shut out, and it's the same thing for the second half too.
Wow.
It's absurd.
So I can imagine that the Big Ten is very excited to get some additional schools in there to make that Big Ten championship game actually interesting.
Well, we're finally going divisionless. Thank God we're going divisionless, because the Big Ten West is disgusting, and it hasn't been fair for the last 10 years that whoever loses the Michigan-Ohio State game
is going in.
He just goes on instead.
And Penn State too. Some years is that it's not fair that we're clearly the best or second best team in the Big Ten, and we don't even get to play for the Big Ten championship because we happen to share a division with Penn State and Ohio State. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being an issue. But you're going divisionless? I didn't know that. This is news to me. You're telling me now for the first time.
That's my favorite Trump meme.
I only just clocked that all the division all the conference shakes ups and all this kind of stuff or expansion or whatever is happening next year. Because I saw our schedule next year. I don't know if it was a real schedule, but I saw that USC and Washington were on it.
Yeah,
and I saw that they had the little asterisk next to it. They indicate a conference game. I'm like, what the fuck? Those are conference games now. So
Michigan.
I do know that I know a lot of teams are joining the Big Ten. USC is joining, and I think UCLA is too.
Yeah,
a lot of these teams are joining the Big Ten, and we're going to be facing a lot of really good
teams.
Michigan next year very well might have the toughest schedule in the history of college football, because we play Ohio State, obviously, Washington, and Oregon. Penn State. I don't know if we play Penn State, actually. Let me pull it up because I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big year for college football. A big off season. I talked about this on a different show last fall. But when they had first broke the news that they were going to do this weird kind of national realignment of teams here. Pac-12, obviously, getting taken out back and shot like Old Yeller. It's not going to be pretty. The Big 12 gets a couple of different teams. The ACC gets a couple of different teams. They're getting Cal. The ACC is getting Cal, and that's really weird to me.
Yeah,
the ACC is getting Cal and Stanford because they're trying to lure Notre Dame to the ACC. That's 1,000,000% why they did that.
That could be interesting.
Yep, and because all of the Olympians that Cal and Stanford produce, the ACC wants to be able to claim that as well.
I think a lot of these conferences could use renames too.
Yeah.
Can they put me in charge of renaming these conferences?
The Big Ten with like 16 teams.
Yeah, the Big
Like
16.
20. We're up to 20 now. I'm pretty
Big
sure.
20. I'm good with that.
No, a Big 20, yeah.
Or
But
you just relegate 10 teams who suck.
I did end
Like
up
the Gophers.
I found the 2024 Michigan schedule, and my God, we got Texas, we have USC, Washington.
Run it through.
In order, it'd be Fresno State, Texas, Arkansas State at home, USC at home, Minnesota at home, Washington on the road, a bye week, Illinois on the road, Michigan State, Oregon at home, Indiana on the road, another bye week, Northwestern, and then the game at Ohio State.
Yep. And you guys probably wouldn't know this, but Fresno State is one of the best group of 5 teams in the entire country this year.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's you can't even say we have Arkansas State, and then the second worst team we play on the schedule. Well, Indiana's really bad actually, but outside of that, I mean, Michigan State's going to be better. Minnesota's not great, but they're nothing to sneeze at.
We got 2 quarterbacks transferring out. Ethan Kaliakmanis is leaving, and we got this freshman redshirt who's leaving. Yeah, Ethan sucks. He's bad.
He was really bad.
Atrocious.
I was kind of shocked at how bad he was.
Oh, me too. He played really well at the end of the last year's stretch. He got hurt, and Tanner Morgan came back for that bowl game in the Yankee Stadium. Obviously, Tanner Morgan deserves to send off. He was a Gopher legend. He's going to be a coach someday. I guarantee it. But Ethan, holy crap. The Greek Gopher was just awful. Ugh. Maybe we'll get one of these cool transfers. Maybe we'll get Arch Manning. Can you imagine? Arch Manning in the most run-heavy offense in the Big Ten.
Well, Michigan's probably going to be looking for a quarterback this year. I'm hoping Dante Moore, if JJ does actually leave, which I think it's 50-50. I don't think JJ should go.
It's a quarterback loaded class next year. He's got a better chance of being a higher pick.
Yeah, I think next year he has a higher chance of being a higher pick than he will this year. There's a lot of people mocking him top 10.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it. I don't see it personally.
Top 15 probably because of quarterbacks, but top 10 is a stretch.
Yeah, I don't think he makes it out of the first round, but he would almost be a lock top 10 pick next year. God forbid, injuries, things like that. But next year we will play 6 teams who were ranked at one point or another this season, which is
unbelievable,
absurd. Yeah.
Oh, true test. So we're all picking Iowa here, right?
Yeah, definitely. The real question is whether the over hits. I don't think it's going to.
Maybe Michigan just makes it their mission to.
I'm pretty sure we played Iowa in the Big Ten title game. I don't think it was last year. It's 2021, and we beat them.
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be their mission because they're bored. They know they're going to stomp them. Let's just go. Let's score 23 points ourselves.
God.
No, it's funny because I was watching it. There's a Michigan fan next to me watching the game, and I thought somebody just caught a touchdown. Sorry, I got the game on TV over here.
On Prime.
Michigan was comfortably beating Iowa, and we got an interception. And Harbaugh doesn't usually run the score up on people. We pull our guys pretty early, like whenever the first chance to get safe, and the TV. The camera pans over to Harbaugh, and you can see him saying to his mic, "We got a chance at a number 1 seed." So we just go guns blazing. We score again, and we just start running up the score on Iowa because that's what happened with Ohio State and Wisconsin back in 2014. I think if Georgia, I don't think it would matter too much because I think if Georgia loses, Michigan's going to be the number 1 seed. If Georgia wins, Michigan's going to stay at 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan did go out there and just try and run up the score.
Listen, I want Michigan to win the game. I also have a very petty reason for wanting them to win the game outside of just I love Michigan. It's that I'm the only goddamn state Michigan fan in this family of mine. Everybody else I know real life are state fans. So
that's what Trent thinks of that.
My uncle is a state fan. My one of my aunts and her husband. One of my aunts is a state fan. Her husband, my uncle, went to state. He got like his mechanical engineering degree at State. One of my cousins went to State. Like everybody in my family is are like huge into State except for me. So like, I need this. I need this.
That's a lot of brothers, little brothers to be specific, but that's a lot of brothers you have in your family, Tristin.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's very painful being, correct all the time. But I mean, hey, it's the cross I bear.
Yeah. So Iowa to win 3-0. No, Michigan's gonna win. I think they might just go for it and try to end that streak just for the memes, of that under total.
Real quick though, because I do want to ask, because like I haven't been able to watch a lot of Michigan this year just because they play when I'm asleep. So I do want to ask Trent, and I know he knows a lot more about college football than I do. Obviously, when and we're in for the college football playoff, what team are you looking at as like this is a team you would like rather play, or this is a team that could give Michigan like a good test in the college football playoff? Like, give me the lowdown here.
Well, I kind of talked about it earlier, but everybody is licking their chops at the idea of playing Florida State. Everybody is. Now, Georgia and Michigan, the teams that are just, and in Washington wouldn't really have the chance, but the teams that are just like, winning you're in, it's not even a conversation. They are praying they get Florida State in round one because it's a sitting duck, no pun intended, with Oregon. The team, the team I would, it's funny, speaking of Oregon, the team I really don't want to play in round one. I mean, clearly, obviously, I wouldn't like to play Georgia. Alabama.
A lot would need to happen for you to have to play Georgia.
Well, I mean, if Alabama wins that game,
you think they drop to 4?
Georgia? Oh yeah, Georgia might not make the playoff at all
if they lose to Bama.
If they lose, it's definitely on the board.
Really?
Think about it. If Alabama beats Georgia, clearly they jump Georgia, so they're ahead of them. Michigan wins, they're ahead of them.
So they'd be 3 or 4.
Yeah. Washington wins, they're undefeated.
Yeah.
With 2 wins over Oregon, who's a great team. They're in. They're ahead of them.
8 wins. Okay. Maybe to keep them out. Yeah.
If Florida State wins,
oh, that's a nightmare.
then that, I think that's the worst scenario, because Georgia's a better team, but did they have the balls to take out? Do they have the balls to take out a 13-0 undefeated champion? And they already get SEC bias. They get it enough. Me personally, I wouldn't be mad if they put in Georgia, other than the fact that Michigan would have to play Georgia round one, and we've seen that story before. And then Texas as well, you got to think, because then Texas and Georgia would have a common opponent in Alabama. Georgia lost to Alabama. Texas beat them on the road in Tuscaloosa by double digits. So 9 or 10. It may have been 9 points, but almost double digits at the very least. Oh. So Georgia is not – if they lose, Georgia's in trouble. They're absolutely in trouble.
God, I really hope – I want it to be a nightmare scenario, so we come back here next week and we're just – assessing the mess.
I'm honestly, all this conversation has really made me realize there's a lot more chaos in college football than I remember. Because I used to be really into this a couple years ago, but I've kind of just fallen off with it.
The thing is that usually there's always like, oh, chaos is right around the corner. And by the time we get to this point of the year, it's usually like, well, it's probably going to work itself out. And it's not going to be much of a discussion about who the 4 teams are, more so about where they're placed. But this year, somebody's going to get screwed. That's the vibe I get. I think Texas is probably going to get screwed. Oregon. The thing is that at the end of the year, there's always 4 teams at least, or 4 teams at most, that, okay, these are the playoff teams. This is how it works out. This is fine. There's way too many spoons and not enough soup, so to speak. There's like 6 or 7 teams that have a rightful claim to playing for the national championship this year, which is way more than there has been since the playoff has been a thing. This 12-team playoff can't come soon enough, but we are one bad outcome for the committee away from the selection show on Sunday being an absolute nightmare for that committee.
Man, now I'm excited to follow along.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the only time you can get a New Englander to say that about college football. I mean, the teams we got around here, what? Boston College, please. You know, expect me to watch Boston College. Give me a
Boston
break.
College almost beat Florida State. Fun fact.
Don't care.
They lost by like 1 point.
I don't care.
Well, that's like my big talking point because Florida State fans will be like, oh, well, we were this good with Jordan Travis. It's like, you guys were kind of fraudulent with Jordan Travis, but that's besides the point. That's my.
And it gets even crazier when you don't have your star quarterback in there. But
yeah.
We had a good show today. We made the most of it without a script, without a plan. We just came in here. We said, we got these 3 things. Let's go ahead, hammer it out. And we made an hour and a half of it. That was terrific. Trent, again, thank you for coming on as usual. And, you know, I will get on my hands and knees and beg you to come on anytime. Tristin, as usual, with the picture change, he's always here. It's much appreciated. And hopefully we can get him a camera soon so we can see the facial expressions when I say something stupid like the Michael Sam comment.
I wasn't even looking at I was looking at my phone. Yeah.
Unbelievable. But we'll be back next week. We'll see what happens. We'll see if we can get Trent back here. Just drag him back. But this was the Beatsides episode 3 or 4.
3, yeah.
Yeah. We'll be back with 4 next week. Thank you for watching.